I am Mariecone Duero from BSed English 2A. I hope you're all doing great today. Now, we will talk about the rules for teaching grammar. But before that, let me read to you our learning objectives. At the end of the lesson, the students will be able to define grammar, differentiate the rules of teaching grammar, and appreciate the importance of rules in teaching grammar. According to Scott Thornberry, the rules for teaching grammar are rule of context, rule of use, rule of economy, rule of relevance, rule of nurture, and last, rule of appropriacy. I will tackle the two rules, which are the rule of context and the rule of use. But first, let us define what is grammar. In linguistics, grammar is the set of structural rules that govern the composition of clauses, phrases, and words in any given natural language. It is the study of such rules, and this field includes morphology, syntax, and phonology, often complemented by phonetics, semantics, and pragmatics. Now, it is explicit there that in linguistics, grammar involves structural rules as to how we compose clauses, phrases, and words of a certain language. Now, in grammar, it includes morphology. When we say morphology, it is the study of construction and formation of words. Syntax, the arrangement of words and phrases to create well-formed sentences in a language. And phonology, the study of the functions of speech sounds in a language, and often complemented by phonetics, the study and classification of speech sounds. Now we have the semantics. It is the study of relationship between linguistic forms and entities in the world. It focuses on the meaning of the sentence. And we have the pragmatics, which is the study of the the relationships between linguistic forms and the users of those forms. Now we have the rule of context. Rule of context is to teach grammar in context. If you have to take an item out of the context in order to draw attention to it, ensure that it is recontextualized as soon as possible. Similarly, teach grammatical forms in association with their meanings. This means that the rule of context in language teaching emphasizes the importance of teaching grammar within the context of real communication. When you say recontextualize when necessary, if you need to take a grammatical item out of the context to explain it or draw attention to it, make sure to put it back into a meaningful context as soon as possible. This ensures that learners can understand how the grammar is used in real communication. Now, teach grammar in association with meanings. When teaching grammatical forms, such as verb tenses or sentence structures, it's important to connect them to their meanings and purposes. Students should understand why a particular grammatical form is used in specific situations. What? Grammar teaching should consider all three. These are the form, the meaning, and use. Teaching grammar in context involves making connections between grammatical patterns and the meaning of text. Wider contextualized aspects such as genre, audience, subject, and purpose, a reader's feelings and responses to a text, potential authorial motivations for making decisions about language choices. The code emphasizes the importance of teaching grammar in a way that relates it to the context of a text. This means helping students understand how grammatical patterns are used to convey meaning in real-world situations. Why? Why do we need to study the rule of context? Well, context provides avenue not just to learn grammar rules, but for meaning making also, and every individual is creative and has rich experiences, thus should be given opportunity to utilize this through real world type situations in which context is a major consideration. This statement highlights that context is not just about learning grammar rules, but also about using them to create meaning. In other words, understanding how grammar functions within a specific context helps us communicate effectively and convey intended messages. How? How will you teach the rule of context? Now, give real world scenarios and examples where grammar is used. When teaching grammar context as a teacher, you need to give real-life situations or scenarios para mas masabtan ng mga bata ang paggamit ng grammar. Next is encourage interaction rather than spending more time answering written exercises and worksheets. This means that the teacher and the students are urged to do interaction like during discussions, then spending time answering worksheets or written exercises. Now use scaffolding strategies like tapping into students' prior experiences, use of graphic organizers, charts, and other scaffolding tools. Let's proceed to the second one, the rule of use. What is the rule of use? It is to teach grammar in order to facilitate the learner's comprehension and production of real language, rather than as an end in itself. Always provide opportunities for learners to put the grammar to some communicative use. Meaning to say, rule of use in teaching grammar emphasizes the practical application of grammar rules in real language contexts. It focuses on teaching grammar not as isolated rules to memorize, but as tools to effectively communicate in everyday situations. This approach emphasizes the importance of using grammar in meaningful and communicative ways. Now, learning English is more than just learning vocabulary and grammar rules. Students need to actually use the language and listen to how others use it as well. This means that learning English involves more than just memorizing words and grammar rules. It emphasizes the importance of actively using the language and listening to others, using it in real context to develop practical language skills. In other words, students use the language and need to listen how others use the language in communication. Grammar teaching should incorporate spoken interactions or communicative production tasks. Now, this statement suggests that when teaching grammar, it's beneficial to include activities where students engage in spoken conversations or tasks that require communication. The idea is to integrate practical, real-life use of grammar in addition to theoretical instruction. To teach grammar effectively, teachers should enable students to control grammar to express increasingly complex ideas. This means it shows the importance of empowering students with the ability to control and apply grammar in expressing their ideas. This approach to teaching grammar goes beyond memorization of rules, but it encourages students to become adept at using grammar as a tool for effective communication. By progressing from basic to complex language structures, students can gradually build the skills needed to express nuanced thoughts and ideas, contributing to a more comprehensive and practical understanding of grammar. Now, why do we need to know the rule of use? Now, the primary goal of teaching English is to help learners acquire the necessary skills for listening, speaking, reading, and writing, which enable them to use the language for effective communication. Now, it means that the main aim of teaching English is to equip learners with the skills of what is being mentioned, so that they can effectively communicate using the languages. Now, next is students should be able to see the relationship of grammar points to how the target language is actually used. This means that students benefit when they can understand how grammar points relate to the practical use of the target language in real life situations. This connection helps them grasp the relevance of grammar rules in effective communication. How do we apply it? Provide authentic samples of language use anchoring on students' context. This means offering real life examples of language use that connect with students' experiences and interests. For instance, using sentences or conversations in teaching that reflect situations, topics, or scenarios relevant to students' lives, making the language learning more relatable, and engaging for them. Second, encourage students to identify usage pattern on how the target language is actually used. Now, encouraging students to identify usage in patterns involves prompting them to observe and recognize how the target language is employed in real context. This approach fosters a deeper understanding of language application, empowering students to discern patterns in spoken and written communication. The third one, use varied activities like letting students listen to audio samples of native and non native speakers of the language. Another, provide opportunities for students to share insights and ideas in class and give helpful feedback to improve language use. Now, take note that it is important to give students the opportunity to share their insights and ideas in class, which fosters a collaborative learning environment. Additionally, providing constructive feedback helps them enhance their language use by pinpointing areas for improvement and offering guidance on how to refine their communication skills. Instead of using grammar based approaches, this rule encourages teachers to employ communicative approaches, that is, language is best learned through interaction. Now, it suggests favoring communicative approaches in teaching grammar. It emphasizes that language learning is most effective when students engage in interactions, highlighting the importance of practical communication. That ends my report. Again, let me just sum up everything. When we say rule of context, it emphasizes the importance of teaching grammar within the context of real communication. It is to recontextualize what is necessary. While the rule of use emphasizes the practical application of grammar rules in real language context. Also focuses on teaching grammar not as isolated rules to memorize, but as tools to effectively communicate in everyday situations.